Hey guys, Mike here. For those of you who don't know, I am a owner of a company called MewGem, and we host a convention in the Central Orlando area called GemCon. Uh, those two things will be important later, but little introduction there for those who don't know me. You are likely here for one of two reasons, maybe three, but I'm going to say one of the two reasons. A, you were sent here by people I work with telling you, hey, this is all the bad stuff that's happening. Or two, um, you just got curious because a lot of people are suddenly probably talking about this. To which I say, welcome, and a little bit of, I'm sorry, this is the way things are going right now in the Pokemon space. So, without any dilly dallying, I'm going to cut to the chase. Recently, there was a show called Nona Nerds that got created, their first show being a month ago. And at first, I didn't think much about it. There's Nona Collects, which also hosts UCF Card Fest. No biggie, no deal. Then I hear that they got mad at Nona Nerds because, as it would turn out, Nona Nerds is also being hosted in the same place that Nona Collects was moving their main show. Okay, so far a little bit weird, but I heard the negative press, and again, still didn't think too much of it. Just being honest here, at that point, I wasn't fully convinced. So I was like, okay, whatever. Then my sponsor reached out to me because in the middle of all this, they applied to be in my card show. And I blindly accepted it at first, not having any context. And then, literally, the same day they applied, I get a message from my sponsor being like, hey, these people, you cannot have them in their show. They're stealing our cred, and so on and so forth. I was like, okay, that's a little annoying, but I understood where they were coming from. So we reversed transactions because I also applied to their show because when I saw it on my feed initially, and just really called it at that. Um, However, when I rejected it that same day, I also got a phone call on my business line. And that's where I was like, hey, I think I know why we got rejected. Is it because of these people? And I go, yeah, no, I apologize. My sponsor doesn't want you guys at the show, so we can't have you. And then mostly beyond that, I was like, whatever. I'll stay neutral with these people. Surely they're just it was just a whole drama thing that would go away within like a week or two. That was an extremely incorrect assumption. um so after this, it was about probably a few weeks later that I went to MiniCon and Fresh Expo. And at this point, this is when I started to understand. Because before this, I noticed a few issues with their show, because I like doing my own personal research. But I was like, okay, these are minor, happens all the time, whatever. Then I saw the yard signs, and my understandings started to become clear. Nona Nerds were putting yard signs at pretty much any show in the Central Florida area you could think of. And it was just straight up just advertising their show, being cheeky by placing it as close as possible without being directly on the premises of the show. And the first encounter of this was at MiniCon and Fresh Expo. And then that same day, I get phone calls saying that they appeared at 3 other shows. And I was like, wow, that's a ding dong move. That is one way to advertise a show. Not even. By the way, I'd like to make this clear. They are never set up at any of these shows, right? Like, I will understand, okay, you're set up at a show and you have like flyers. I do this all the time. And it's like, if you're set up at a show and you're giving flyers about your show, as long as you're not being aggressive about it, it's like, okay, cool. You're at least supporting the show by having that table. And when I do it, I'm mostly focused on my product anyways. People will probably tell me I need to advertise more, but I usually don't. I'm more focused on my product. But the flyers there, people want to pick them up. The thing is, they are putting big signs in, like, basically the inlet area to these shows, and they're never at these shows. They never mention these shows. They just plop and go away, which is a really bad look, and just, yeah, it makes you look like you're sabotaging, and that's what I've been referring to it as. A lot of people can probably agree that just placing your ad at a show without even being there, without having a table, nothing, not even walking the floor. I never even seen them walk the floor of these shows, which is just like, so you're not paying entry for shows that do charge entry. You're not paying for a table, to properly have the permission to bend there, and then you just go and bloop. Yeah. But what I did not realize at the time of this realization was that was only the surface. And after that, I started, like, going back and just like, man, that's really scummy. But I didn't really have anything else at the time. It was really just that. Now, the unfortunate part is, through all this, I've encountered them on several occasions, but I mostly held back, kept it neutral. Maybe a little occasionally would reference, like, hey, what is up with this? This seems a little off. So, the real thing that triggered this video comes May 9th. I decided to sign up for a small event called Oviedo Fun Fest, which is hosted, I didn't quite fully know at the time, but I kind of did, and now I feel like an idiot. But anyways, it was hosted by friends of Nona Nerds. Not Nona Nerds directly, just really good friends. And one of the first things they tell me after I'm getting all set up, which, by the way, I was set up right next to them, which doesn't make any sense because of the following. The very first thing they tell me on the day of that show is, hey, I could have got you kicked out, but I'm letting you be here. And I'm like, whoa. Like, okay, hello? Because at this point, because of the several times I talked to them in the past, pulling up certain little criticisms, and me not liking the whole yard sign situation, they're already on edge. So I'm sitting here like, fine. But, needless to say, I think if they had any power over that show, they would have at the very least put me far away from them or in a really bad spot, which can be a bad spot if they're right next to me. Keep in mind, though, this was a really small layout. Like, I'm talking like 10 tenths. And this was more of like a market style event that accidentally got split in half because the organizers couldn't decide if they wanted to be a marketplace or card show last minute. This is a real thing, by the way. Most of the advertising up to like 1 or 2 weeks before the event was like, oh hey, we're like a small like market event, bring everything, let's have fun. And a lot of the stuff they had really mirrored that. Then I start looking like the week before, and I'm like, there's 3 TCG vendors I recognize, 4 actually, and all of a sudden there's a little bit more emphasis on being a TCG show. So I was like, all right, I'll go grab the TCG stuff too. And it was also at this point where I started bringing around my own Eevee suit that I bought myself. It's gonna be a very important clarification, I swear. And I started just like setting it up, kind of just standalone mode, to be at events. However, this is where the major, like, I'm gonna say, for lack of a better term, attack on me started. This is where I really got the gears revving, and this is where my initial post, I'm just gonna put it right here, on Instagram started. Because that day, my roommate, who was with me at the time, and obviously friends with me and helps me with a lot of things, he decided, hey, I want to have fun. I'm going to go put on the Eevee suit. I go, yeah, go for it. Walk around. As he's walking around, just kind of doing whatever, and I'm not really paying attention. There's several points where he goes up next to Gengar, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Let people. Before I even think we sent out the Eevee. Yeah, before the Eevee even went out, they came to my booth or something. One way they came around, I started a conversation, neutral as always. And then I was like, hey, really, the whole yard sign stuff, not gonna lie, kind of weird. A lot of people are complaining about it and telling me about it. And like, oh no, it's fine, I do real estate. We do stuff like this all the time. It's not a problem. And I go, yeah, sure, whatever. Clearly missing the entire point of why I brought it up and comparing it to real estate, which is not the same thing whatsoever. And then I was like, also, notice you guys, you probably should chill on like using the AI generation for your stuff. That's the moment where he snapped. And told me to fuck off and never talk to him again. This is specifically the grandpa, by the way. And I was like, he's like, oh, I don't use AI in anything. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever, I don't care. At this point, by the way, this was an outdoor event in like the heat of the sun, so, we're really feeling the beatings at this point, and we're just like, okay, whatever, I don't care. So then, as my Eevee was walking around, I'm at my table, and at least once, maybe even twice, I overhear Nona Nerds saying that, come to our show, Gengar's gonna be there, Eevee's gonna be there. And I heard that, and I went, whoa, 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 whoa. I understand that you initially went out to me requesting that you wanted the Eevee. For context, this is just one of their many accounts. They have at least 3 of them. I can confirm this. But here's the DM where they were asking me directly, hey, could we use the Eevee suit? And at the time of this message, I was like, okay, sure. You know what? I can just go in a nano, and I'll just do this little thing for them, make some quick money, whatever. And I was like, whoa, 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 that can't be right, because you just told me to fuck off. And fucking off is definitely the complete opposite of we're gonna work with you. So I'm sitting here like, they are lying to people. But yeah, so I overhear this, and I'm like, well, I know that's a lie. I don't really want to go over and just say anything about it. So I was like, all right, whatever. They could just do random claims. Maybe a kid or two will be unhappy because they went there expecting Eevee and all they got was big creepy Gengar. I was like, okay, whatever, probably misreading information. They'll probably come back home and remember that they don't actually have that. But then, when I get home, I do my usual scrolling on social media, and because at this point I don't have them blocked or anything, because, well, I'm a little snoopy, I'll be honest. In my feed, I see this. This is a full video, but I only have a screenshot because it was when this was posted where I started to get mad, and then shortly after I commented on this is when I get blocked. I was like, I saw this and I was like, whoa, they're using my stuff to advertise their crap? Alright, buddy, now you're drawing lines. Because I would like to make it clear here. If they just posted, like, oh, hey, we're at Oviedo Fun Fest and just happened to catch my Eevee, I would have been like, fine, whatever, he was walking around having a time. But no, they very specifically were recording when Eevee was there, because it could have very much chosen the time that Eevee was not there and just recorded the Gengar. But oh no, we gotta piss him off. So they recorded my Eevee specifically and mentioning that they would both be there. Because again, this is going with the claims that they were making that same day. And when I call them out about it, I can show the DM where they say, oh, we actually have our own. Hey, Mike from the edit here. I would just like to point out that second message they send me where they say, well, you hear a lot of wrong info. No disrespect again, just a good video of Pokemon. That, to me, was just like a tipping point as well. Because I'm just like, just a good video of Pokemon. Yeah, like your other AI-generated crap that's on your profile. I'm going to show the posts here that I'm referring to. I'm sure I could find more, but just a good video of Pokemon? Really? Yeah, I might have agreed had you not had put down your card show in the video. Then I would have been like, yeah, just another Pokemon video, posted on their thing, whatever. The fact that you went out of your way to put your show with my stuff is why we are here and why you are being called out. Stop touching other people's shit. This is why you have problems. And you blame everyone else for touching you in the same ways, but you're doing way worse. And this goes back to an earlier point I was saying where he's saying like, oh, you're just wrong. Again, he reinforces that here in the CM. Well, you hear a lot of wrong info. No. And unless everyone that I've talked to is lying to me, which is several people, this is before I even mentioned the fact that all of this just seems to be a front to buy Pokemon cards, as shown in the AI post examples. I'm gonna put the specific one up here again, but it's like, come on, are we even giving a fuck about our vendors, or are you just doing this just to, like, have a front to buy and flip Pokemon? Because that's what it looks like to me. That's exactly what this looks like to me. I started looking through the posts, and I realized that around the same time I said I was getting an Eevee, which was around the time that Minicon was happening, they already started this bullcrap claim of having an Eevee at their show. So my guess is they saw that Minicon's having it, then they decided to lie and run their mouth about it, which then led to, oh shit, we need to deliver, so they reached out to me because they never had the Eevee, and that was their last desperate attempt, which turned on them when obviously they told me to fuck off the day before their show. I am looking at this now and realizing that's exactly what happened. So they were willing to spread lies, having nothing material for it, by the way. Like, nothing material for it. They just saw that another show was doing it, and they wanted to copy off of it. Again, a lot of what they're doing is just copying. And then took that, ran with it so bad to the ground that they reached out to me and then screwed themselves over by telling me to piss off, and they still went with a lie because they had to keep it up, and so they used my Eevee suit video to prove that they quote-unquote still had it, even though, guess who never showed up? There was no Eevee. Anyways, I thought that was just funny, as I'm just looking through and gathering evidence for this video. Also, I would like to note that I went back to my eBay orders where I actually ordered my Eevee because I wanted to check something. And yeah, I ordered mine April 18th. Their very first post about Eevee was on April 21st, meaning it was after I would have ordered my Eevee, and I obviously posted about, you know, ordering my Eevee, so they would know I have the Eevee, and so, yeah. Needless to say, they royally screwed up. And the only two card shows in the area that are going to be having an Eevee anytime soon are Minicon and GemCon. Just putting that out there. That I call BS. And that's really where this whole thing started, because they now started personally attacking me and basically using my stuff for their gain. And after this is when I started posting, hey, not gonna name any names yet, but people are being a dingus. Here's the post I posted for reference, where I kind of started the initial, hey, this is a thing happening. And I thought I was just gonna kind of post it and not think too much about it. Boy, was I wrong. So, after that, they respond to my comment calling me a liar. Then they go in my DMs and be like, hey man, we told you we have our own Eevee. And I was like, you literally never have? And why on planet Earth would you ever ask me for my Eevee in the first place? You asked specifically for the suit. You never said, oh hey, can you come walk around in our Eevee costume? Because that would have been different. And then later, during the week, I finally find someone that was there, and I go, hey man, he was a vendor, not gonna spill any names, for their sake, but if they wish to come out, they can. I go, hey man, you were Nona Nerds, right? And he's like, yeah. Do you remember seeing any sizable Eevees? And he goes, no, I just saw a girl in an Eevee costume, and obviously I saw the big Gengar, but no, I can't think of any other Eevees besides the little girl that I saw. And I'm like, right, so they're big fat liars. Got it. And that's really what kind of just threw me off entirely and made me kind of double down on this whole situation, was when I got that confirmation that, yeah, hey, there was in fact no other Eevees in sight that could have been remotely what they were talking about. I was like, okay. So they're making false claims using my stuff to try to get more traction, and basically telling me to go piss off because I'm just telling them truthful things about their show, was like, whoa, okay. And the phone call I got this morning is really what kind of kicked this off, and where I started hearing more that they were kind of spreading stuff like this, where they were telling their vendors that we were blocklisting me and Nona Collects, which have kind of been getting bundled together at this point. But they were basically saying that we were blocklisting anyone that vends at Nona Nerds, and I'm here to tell you that is entirely false, because that same vendor I talked to, they are very much on my list, and I don't discriminate when it comes to my vendors. In conclusion, Nona Nerds are doing a lot of deceitful stuff, and just kind of thought, hey, we're going to make a card show and try to steal these guys' rep, and it is currently shooting them in the face quite a bit, especially since they are now retaliating against us a lot. I think like when the first show was happening, like kind of before, they weren't really doing that. They're just like, oh, we got middle fingered by Nona Collects, whatever. We'll just keep running our stuff. But I think now, and they just kind of left it alone at that. Now they're like more being aggressive back, and that's why I'm making this video, because there's probably a lot of people that are, you know, getting information from Nona Nerds and be like, whoa, it's making these 2 other shows. 3 if we want to get technical here. But, I mean, and it's like, whoa, none of this information that are being said is true in the absolute slightest. And, you know, that's why I'm being like, hey, here's what they're doing. Here's how we're getting attacked. Things. They don't want to own up to anything. Forgot to throw that bit in there. They don't own up to anything. Like, if you give them criticism, they're basically going to turn you down and say in some way that they're correct, which I witnessed the most firsthand in my conversations with them. So, heads up, if you ever give them any feedback, I would not expect a response. And I actually can prove this because a lot of their vendors during the last show were complaining that the AC was miserable, it was hot as hell, and I actually walked their first show, so I knew this firsthand, and like a few other issues. And they're like, oh, so we're moving to the soccer field because we clearly sold out, and we're going to make it bigger. I was like, okay, I guess that's a start. And, you know, the heat issue might have just been, you know, something with the venue itself that they just didn't really have much control over. Or maybe just that day the AC was bad. Turns out, during their second show, it was still hot. They overbooked their tables, and they were just right back at square one. And I was like, wow. There's messing up, and then there's messing up, not giving a shit, and doing the same mess up again. Which is, to my understanding, exactly what happened. Now, I didn't walk the second show. I probably would have been banned on site had I even tried. And with the rather unfortunate parking situation and everything, I probably wouldn't have even took my chances. So, yeah. And that brings us to here today, where I have to sit here, make this video, and basically inform people that, hey, there's a lot of misinformation going around, and they're doing a lot of lying, scumming stuff. Hopefully, despite my thoughts being a little all over the place, that this made sense. Anyways, peace out.